Today we are going to talk about how to lay out items based on their categories. We need this for converting the trial balance, where you see it from our last video. We have to lay out the accounts with its balance based on the categories. It'll look like this. Imagine this part is the trial balance. In this case, we want to turn the trial balance to a P&L, or you call it income statement in North America. Here I'm just showing you a simple income statement format. You may have your own format in your region. Feel free to skip to 145 if you already know how the income statement is laid out in your region. Alright, so what we want to do is lay out the accounts in a predetermined order. To do this, we have to create two backend columns, which is format in black, so that we can turn it on and off. Only the developer can see this. The first column we need to create is type, because we laid out the accounts based on these types. Here I just name it randomly. I'll let you know the type names I use when we create the income statement. Here you can just treat this as an example so that you can apply to your own situation. So let's say if I want to lay out the sales items first, so you should be getting the type column like this. Then you have to create a sequence column. It doesn't matter how you call it, as it can be hidden. It's totally up to you. Of course, you can't manually key in the type because it can be a lot of accounts, so we need to create a formula. Here we are going to create the layout sequence. In the format cell, if cell D8, remember to lock it by pressing F4. I put in the first category, sales. If it is sales, then it starts counting this one and this one as well. So we use the COUNTIF formula. Here we put in the dynamic range starting from cell D8. Remember to lock the first D8 and then colon D8 again. Usually, I lock the column D but not the row 8. So that when I scroll down column D, this one will be D8, 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 D9, D8, D10, comma, and then the count criterion is D8 itself. Keep pressing F4 to lock the column D but not the row 8. It is quite long, so let me pause here. Comma, if type is not sales, return 0. So when we scroll down the sequence column, we have 1 corresponds to sales account 321 and 2 corresponds to sales account 654. Okay, the first part is done. Now for the second category, I want the first COGS to be 3 and the second COGS to be 4. Go back to the formula, copy the first part, Ctrl C, Alt Enter, and then Ctrl V to paste it. Then change this one to COGS. Remember, it's case sensitive. Let's say if I close it now, then the third one returns a 1. Here COGS becomes 1 and 2 here, which is not the 3 and 4 that we want. So on top of the original COUNTIF, add the previous category's max count, which is the 2 sales here. So 2 plus 1 is 3, 2 plus 2 is 4. How can we get a sales count? Simply add the maximum of the previous category's count. Remember, this D8 will change. Let's say if I make it D14 and lock the D14, it works for only one instance. But it doesn't work when the account adds up dynamically. When the account column expands, the type remains the same. So in order to make the type change along with the accounts, I use the indirect method. Here we want it to be a $D and a dynamically changed number, which I did in the last video. The max count is simply determining the number of counts to be wrote down. So this is the first cell, number 8, and add the max count of 7, which is cell F4. This part is $D and then 8 plus 7, which is 15 but not 14. So we minus 1 here. Now it becomes 15 minus 1, which is 14. That's the $D, $14 that we want. Now we wrap it up with an indirect, comma, then everything else returns a 0. Now you can see 3 corresponds to the first COGS. That's coming from counting the COGS, which is this one, the first COGS, and add the previous category sales maximum of 2 whenever the type is COGS. So for the second one, it counts to 2 and add the maximum of sales to make it 4. Once we get the laid out sequence, we'll use the sequence to return the account number. Here we use the index formula to point to the account column. Here I just go all the way downwards. Comma, Alt Enter, and then use match using the numbers generated by the rows formula on the current cell range S8, S8 to match with the sequence column. Here, just pretend that the sequence column is right next to the type here. Lock the purple column and a 0 for the exact match. Oops, I forgot to lock the index target range. Lock it and scroll down again. Let's check if we are right. The first one is account 321. So here we get 321. The second one should be 654. The third one should be 123. Now we return the amount based on the account number. Again, we use the index formula to point to the amount column. Alt Enter and then match using the current account number. Comma and then match with the account column, match type 0 and close the bracket. Forget the NAs as we'll fix that when we work on the real P&L. So account 321 should return amount 400. Account 654 should return amount 500. And for the rest of it. Let's say if you have multiple categories, you need to keep appending the COUNTIF formulas. The formula is just adding up downwards. That's why I say it's not very convenient. Because I have to add these COUNTIF criteria manually. For accounting, it's okay because the account type usually won't be more than 5. But if the type quantity is massive, then manually adding COUNTIF criteria isn't proper. So in that case, I suggest using Python. The built-in count group by functions should be easy enough. This is a simple example, so Excel 2016 should be fine. Alright, so for the next video, we'll move on to the actual income statement. Ciao.